Good evening, Survivor Rights. Here we are. Sorry we're a little bit late. We have good reasons for being late. Just wanted to hop on and see how everybody's doing. Our guest tonight is, everybody knows, no introduction needed here, Ted Harris. Not in costume of any kind, so that's all good. I'm excited to have this conversation with you tonight. I know, thank you for coming to us. Are you in a Best Western? That's my question.
Yes, I am in a Best Western. There is a couch here and a football. Yes, I am in a Best Western. So, if only I had his, whatever, the frequent flyer or the rewards.
Yes, right? Wild.
Yep.
Get that. Okay. Well, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. You have been a busy guy. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Mardell. See who else is out there. You've been busy. You did 2 Dale Schultz recordings. You also just did the Uncle Mike show with Mike Prusak. So, man, crack me up. How are you doing with all that? That's a lot. I know what it takes to do this.
Yeah, really well. The satire stuff is really easy. It doesn't take much work. Just kind of, it's funny because I was telling Mike, we have a group chat. 80% of that stuff is stuff that I've either heard workers say or heard people say workers say. There's a little thing in there where the worker character almost joined a cult before he came to meetings and professed, and that was a story I heard. A worker named Steve Watts or something told me that story.
Wild. I talked to Mark Simmons today, and he was like, pretty much everything he said is exactly what a worker would say. Maybe he said it a little more, Uncle Mike-like, but yeah, I've heard all of it. So, pretty wild, but... Yeah, crazy. The Dale Schultz stuff, man, I want to give you kudos. I know what it took for us. We didn't do him because you had just done him on our big show that we did here on Survivor Rights. But man, that is a lot of information, and it is so disturbing when you start digging into it, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a lot of help. Cynthia helped me so much. Bruce, Wings for Truth, and Michael Abbott. Loved getting to know him. Think of him as a friend now. I don't know if he'll claim me, but I
pretty sure he does.
So yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was also really I don't want to say enjoyable, but it was like, oh, this is worth doing. Like getting into this, like this stuff needs to be talked about. So it was. I did things I didn't realize that. Recording something that long, editing it, and I recorded the second one. I recorded once, and there was something wrong with the sound. but it's really and the other thing I'll say that's crazy is that everything I covered, I felt like I was only talking about 10% of that particular anecdote or document, and that was what was crazy for me. Like, this needs to be a 100-part podcast, each episode an hour, and then we might kind of do this stuff justice.
So are you doing more?
I'm not gonna do more with Dale Schultz. I want to do something next on exclusivity and how. And I think, people talk about that, it's not just me, but, that is really, I think, what fuels so much or creates the culture that allows this abuse and the cover up to take place, because, there's this image, this ideal of the God's way, the one true way. We all know it, we've heard it. And so that it just, any sort of thing that's going to make them look bad or reflect poorly is just something that we can't have. That is their attitude. And so it's just deny, cover, whatever they need to do to just pretend like it doesn't happen and make sure nobody finds out about it. And then, it doesn't take much of that where a culture begins to emerge, and predatory type of people begin to realize, like, oh, this is a system I can operate in without much accountability because I won't get reported to the police. I'm in a position of trust. I'm in people's homes. Parents trust me. They think I'm between them and God. And so, yeah, that's what I want to really delve into more. And I was talking with Cherie about it. She has a lot of really good stuff on that. But I'd be happy to talk more about it now too.
Go for it, man. The exclusivity, what I have on my agenda for you is a couple things. I want to talk about the youth because I watch you as a father and I love just the way your son looks at you and the way you look at him. It's just a joy to see.
Well, thank you.
Seriously, so many of us grew up not knowing a father like that and knowing what it felt like to have that kind of relationship and to have that kind of unconditional love. And so I wanted to just talk about the youth and where you see what you think we could be doing differently or more of to support them better. I feel like we're kind of dropping the ball there as an ex-community as far as really reaching out around them. I feel like we're doing a lot of deconstruction stuff for people who are older and making their own choices or whatever, but what are we doing for the kids?
That are still in?
Still in, yes, and or who are, in college, or just that younger generation that maybe are just they're 20 to 35, either they're newly married or maybe they just have kids. They're still very tied to their expectations of their parents, but they don't want their own children to grow up like this. Like, I don't feel like we're really addressing that demographic very well. Do you?
That's a great point. Yeah, but I often think about that because adults who are still in the church, it's like, at this point, if that's what you want to do, great. I'm not going to change your mind. But yeah, I think about that often because, I remember even as a child growing up in it, I wasn't abused, thankfully, even though, my sister was. But just much of the time just being miserable, and that's kind of my point, even in sort of a best case scenario where, like I said, I said that I think on the previous time we did this, like my parents weren't perfect by any means, but there was, always that unconditional love with both parents. And even when things would get a little chaotic or whatever, I always knew that was still there. My mom and my dad expressed it in different ways, but it was there. And so that's kind of my point, is even sort of in the best case scenario, it's still like a very unhappy experience where even if you're not abused, you're still internalizing just a lot of this stuff. Like, Josh, I was listening I want to talk more about this later, but I was listening to a convention, I think it was in Alaska, I call in to some of those and listen to them. I have a group chat with some friends where we listen together and roast. It's that's what we do for fun.
Man, we have a whole new platform here.
But I don't. I'm trying to remember, but the worker said something along the lines. Oh man, I wish I could remember, and I probably can't even say it as awful as he did, but basically feeling unhappy, not liking ourselves is a very good place to be. That's where God wants us. I think someone made a meme about it on the millstone, and it's like, so you hear this stuff, you internalize it, and that's what I really don't like about these systems, that there's children, young people, because you're just indoctrinated in it, and you absorb that stuff with your mother's milk, and that becomes your reality. I mean, I think of that so often. Before my earliest memories, I was, age 1, 2, 3, sitting in gospel meetings every week. So just, that's so much.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have an answer yet on the youth, but I feel like it's a conversation we need to keep on having. And I'm not, Natalie and I have talked a lot Minimal, not static. Okay, thank you, Mardell. Um, I just feel like maybe on pathways or something we need to do better on like TikTok and some of those platforms that I don't think any of us are really. I don't know. Maybe there's people out there doing self help in the 2x2 arena that I'm not aware of. You would know if anybody knew. I would think that something's out there.
Yeah, I think some people do like TikTok reels, like kind of satire, humor,
Right.
that sort of thing. But
I
yeah,
don't.
it's
I don't know what
tough.
the answer is, but I just feel like that's kind of. Um, I feel like it's something that we can figure something out and doing better on. But and along with
Yeah, well, and one, go ahead.
no, I'm done. You go.
Oh, I said, that is one of the reasons you put so much work into the stuff like the Dale Schultz stuff. I did. I mean, it's, every politician, everybody says it's for the children, it's for the children. But yeah, in this case, I think it really is a worthy cause to try to force as much accountability or at least shed as much light on this as we can to, because that's really all we can do. Others have said this, and I said this at the end of the last video. The only change, as painful and minimal as it has been, that has come in the 2x2 church is as a result of outside pressure. Uh, so that's why we need to keep, whether it takes more heat, more light, whatever it is. And I think people have this misconception, like, we're trying to destroy the church or tear it down. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that would like to see it go, but it's not a problem with the 2x2 system. Like, if that's your thing, great. But the lack of accountability, the lack of concern for safety, a lack of transparency, that is stuff that creates such fertile conditions for abuse. Because I don't see much changing. Like, yeah, sure, report it to the police, but I don't. There's still. I don't feel confident that every parent in the church would feel like, oh, they may well do it. I don't know, but as far as just knowing who's who, what workers are going in which homes, what sort of, I don't know, screening there is. What if someone says to overseer X, worker Y makes my kids feel really uncomfortable. Like, we have no way of knowing if that will be handled seriously.
Right.
And so just so they're still staying in people's homes, and the words I keep saying over and over: accountability and transparency.
Yes.
And there is neither of those.
Neither. I have spent an exorbitant amount of time thinking through and documenting for myself and making lists about what does healthy community look like? What does healthy community feel like? And just going through in my own life experience, what are the healthiest either workplaces or all kinds of scenarios on what feels healthy, what gives people an environment where they can speak up, where they can ask questions, where they can feel safe. And so really just thinking through what does healthy community look like for those that are still in, but also even for those of us who are out, because if we take the same programming with us and don't learn different ways of thinking and being, then it's just more of the same. It's just over here instead of over here. And so I don't know. I would love your thoughts on this because I really feel like, you know, I know Cynthia and Natalie and I've talked about this a lot, but then and Steve Patton too. And then it comes down on okay, well, who's supposed to be doing that? Who's supposed to be leading that? Where does that come in, and how do we do that together where we're really meeting the needs of this community or analyzing? Like, I don't know. I want to know what you think, Ted.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because people tend to take a variety of directions. I mean, some people leave the truth. I wanted to say it just once, truth. and delve deeper into Christianity. And I see those people on their journey and just the joy they feel like they're discovering it for the first time, and that's their path. And then there's other people who are like, I don't want anything more to do with religion. It's all a scam. It's, Christianity is just exclusivity with a bigger tent, or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that's part of the thing, because the religion piece needs to be dealt with. How do you address this thing, like I was saying, that's just been inside you since before you can remember, that's been an entire part of your life? And it's, yeah, I don't know. I was people are. I've been chatting with someone who left recently, and I get a little emotional because I feel for them so much, because their family is so invested in it, and just how hard that can be for some people. You lose your entire social circle, your friends, and at the same time, it's like it's something you have to do. I think most of us realize that moment where, like, like Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses on the door of the cathedral, like, here I stand, I can do no other. And that's the thing. But yeah, back to your point, I don't know, because I think for some people it does get really hard. It does get really dark, because there's so much of the programming that has, I want to say, worked, but not really. But it's been the operating system, for better or worse, and that's gone, and there's not much there. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just putting together, like, it almost needs like a 12-step program kind of thing, because when you were saying that, I was thinking, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so you take the drink away, you still have, as they say, you take away the alcohol, you still have the ism, and that's the alcohol, the drinking is just a symptom of the deeper disease. So yeah, I don't know. I think that is like sort of, I just kind of we could look into researching I think there's a lot of helpful books, different programs people do, but it's, yeah, and I think that's the thing is, like, for me, it's like, I try to tell people, it gets better. You're not alone. And I think that's why we're very lucky now that you have community, that other people can lean that it wasn't there before.
Right.
But yeah, I guess ultimately I took probably 25 minutes to answer this question. But I think the best thing people can do is just reach out, connect with people you see in the X community who are like, yeah, yes, that person has what I want, or that,
Yes,
I identify with that person. And I can't speak for everybody, but I think 9 times out of 10 people would be more than happy to say, yeah, let's chat, let's connect. And I think that's just the, it's like war veterans, right? Like, they're not going to talk with just anybody about their experiences, but when they sit down with another war vet,
right.
then it's like, yeah, okay, now we can talk about it, because you
Right.
get it,
Well, we
what.
talked about it earlier. I was talking with Steve Vandermeiden earlier today, and we talked about, like in domestic violence in the world, one of the things that people wear, like waitresses and people like that, airline stewardesses, wear a little safety pin. And the safety pin means I'm a safe person. And if there was something like that we could all maybe put on our Facebook profile picture or
Oh, I like that.
so that we would know, and not for people who aren't ready yet to support other people, because a lot of people aren't there yet.
Yeah.
But it would at least give, when you're going through and people that you might know pop up, something that would be an indicator that I've got some trauma training, I have good communication skills, I feel like I've really deconstructed well, I am confident with where I'm at in my life right now, and I'm willing to give and I'm willing to listen.
Yeah,
And
and I'm not going to tell you which path you
not
should
going to
take in
judge.
terms of religion. Like, I'm going to just help you find what works best for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's a great idea.
Something that, yeah, so we're gonna talk through that maybe. I don't know how to make that happen, but we'll work on it, I guess. But something
If
like
anyone can, it's you.
I'm gonna work on it, Ted. But yeah, so just like and I was also thinking there's also if we could maybe put like a prayer for people who are wanting to have that, if they want to start praying for other people, those people could all connect with one another in that way with just a symbol, and that way we're not judging each other or making assumptions or this person's Christian or not Christian or whatever, because we can still have a great fellowship with one another, even if we believe or don't believe, because we have such a
Right.
shared background. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I just love how proactive you are, just seeing the need for real help and healing in people and just really taking that on because, most people don't do that. They just say, okay, well, it'd be nice if there was a way, but I'm too busy. And I see you just doing so much work, getting yourself out there, getting people involved, talking to each other. So I think I speak for many when I say thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Ted. I really do have a strong passion for helping people shorten the window of time that it took for me to get where I am, and also to give people hope and to know that they're not alone. I mean, we live in the world of social media. To not be doing this would be, I don't know. I feel like it just is a calling that has been laid on my heart that I do it happily and willingly and lovingly. I'm not always right, and sometimes I mess up, and I'm happy to fix that whenever I can. But I sure do care a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we're all very lucky to have you, and it's just yeah, it's just been really, uh, I don't know, just finding this sense of community. I was talking about that group chat I'm in with convention. Like there was at Wasilla convention, there was some funny stuff going on. Like this woman saying how great thou art for her testimony, and then like some poor guy I think had some health mental health issues was like shouting and stuff. I didn't know about the mental health issues at the time, but anyway, we were just in the group chat thing, and yeah, just what a joy it is to be free of that. But in terms of community, like I think what I told the other four I'm in the group chat with is, if I had all the time and energy I wasted growing up in the 2x2 church, I would take it and put it all into growing up into the 2x2 church again so I could be here in this group chat with all of you. And I think, that's the kind of silver lining of all of this, is just finding
Yes.
this secondary community, all of
Yes.
making connect. I've made so many friends. My sister sent me an invite probably 4 years ago to join the X 2x2 group that Mike and Abby and Kari and Kyle run. And they do such a great job with that. And I was like, whatever. She wants me. And I will say, like, for me, like, even though, like, I left in 1997, and so, I was in my mid 40s when I joined that. But, from that point, for more time than I'd been in it, like, I was so ashamed of growing up in that church. I did not want to talk about it. I did not want to say anything about it. I got to a point maybe after 15 years of knowing my wife, like talking about it with her some, and I was so thankful when there was finally a Wikipedia page for it, because I could just point people to the Wikipedia page. But it was just, I don't even know how to kind of describe or articulate the shame. But then as soon as I was in that group and started, talking and laughing, crying, laughing, all that stuff is just, oh, Okay. You know, so yeah, even for me who left long ago, that kind of community is just it's so it's just so healing and empowering, and then you make a lot of really good friends along the way and reconnect with other ones, you know, like Daryl Johnson. Like, you know, I was just a little kid when he was in college in Bozeman, you know, but we reconnected in recent years, so
Yep.
it's good.
It is good. I totally agree. I love when I travel, I get to meet all these people, you know, and which is super interesting and fun. But yeah, I totally agree. It is a fascinating um, club to be in, I guess I should say. I call it the Exit Lounge.
I like it. But
Uh,
yeah, again, just back to that previous point, for people who are newly freed, uh, yeah, I think that is the number one thing, is just reach out, make connections, talk to
yes.
people, you know, what, just check in, you know, just like, hi, you know, like just text someone hi, even if you don't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
Or
Well, and I have been really conscious these last couple of months of reaching back in and how important that is to so many people who are on the fence, in for reasons that they don't really can't either they can't articulate, but they want desperately to be out, but they feel so stuck. And so loving them where they are too. I think that that's also a demographic that is starting to kind of feel like they are fine riding the fence, however long that is, and that we're going to love them no matter what and not judge them for.
absolutely, yeah. And I was telling someone, like, so often now, I actually, um, I don't know if I should say, well, it doesn't matter, but like really, like in the last couple of years, I really consider my target audience for everything I do people who are still in but unhappy with it, because that's where I get, like, for me, that's the most meaningful feedback I get. You know, like I've had several people reach out and say, like, my videos helped them finally leave, the satire stuff. But you know, just I love it. It's very kind of humbling just to get so much feedback from people who, you know, just say, like, thank you, and you know, I'm in it for this reason, or I'm still in it for that reason. But it, you know, and so I think there's just a lot of people, like you say, for whatever reason, just remain in, and I don't think that, you know, I don't know. I think that a lot of people have different opinions on that. I know some people can be very harsh. You know, you're still in a cult, you're still supporting a system, and I don't agree with that. You know, I think people need to be treated with grace and respect and compassion. And you know, if anybody's going to be advocates or voices inside, it's going to be them. It's not going to be the hardcore true believers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For them to start saying, you're not welcome in my home when my children are here, you're not, you know, I'll meet you out for dinner, but that's it, you know, or I'm not coming to gospel meetings. I mean, I think there's still a lot of those people that are in that kind of demographic, if you will. The next wave of change, if we're able to do that outside of the FBI coming in, is going to come from the inside. It's going to come from people who are just tired of there not being any change. And instead of trying to make changes, they're just going to say, okay, well, I won't be there at that gospel meeting because you're allowing perpetrators there. And they just don't go.
Yeah.
When people start behaving that way, that's when the workers will start to listen. They're not going to listen to us, but they will listen, I think, or maybe not. I don't know. I try to have vision for 10 years down the road and just make sure that whatever I'm doing in a way that's going to bring love and healing. And outside of that, I don't care what side they're on. That's the intention and the filter that I try to run it through is this going to be loving, bring people together, and is it going to build people up or tear them down? And I guess that is as much of a filter as I can possibly get, you know, for myself. But yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. You know, like I tell my students, I teach high school, you know, the first day of school, like I am going to treat you with kindness and respect, and I expect the same. And, you know, even there may be times where you don't treat me with respect, or you're acting, you know, in a way that's inappropriate. Like I'm still going to treat you with respect.
The fear. So many times I get a message about something and somebody shares something with me about something somebody said, and it's very triggering and hard for them. And 9 times out of 10, Ted, my response is, all I hear is fear. I hear fear. I hear sadness on their part. So let's take a second and step back. It's kind of like high school kids. My husband is a substitute teacher. So what, on a reservation, on a native land, you want to talk about children who are coming from a situation where they have broken home, reasons to be angry, reasons to be lashing out, reasons to not have their homework done, all of those things. And so, again, it's the same principle you were just talking about. When he stops and thinks about that child and what he knows about their situation, you know, it really does soften the way he delivers whatever the message is.
Yeah, and I learned that, you know, teaching in Oakland, you know, kind of the urban inner city school, whatever you want to call it, where there's just not a lot of backup and support for administration. So you just,
Right.
all you really have is building relationships. About fear.
I want to know what you guys out there that are listening today think about this conversation. I want to know what input you have and what it is that you guys feel like we can be doing more of, or are we doing everything that we possibly can be doing? That is the question. I want to think about 10 years down the road. Do you want prayer circles? Is there a way that we can, you know, visit each other across the country and fill up those worker rooms that we all have and that kind of stuff? Just creating that kind of culture where we're together and loving on one another the way we always thought we were loved on, you know? So you're back.
I am back. Yeah, you know, you're talking about fear. Are people chiming in? Do we want to address that?
Nope, they're not chiming in yet.
Okay. You know, I was like, I'm doing this training here at the University of San Diego, and it's just amazingly beautiful campus. It's Catholic University, and just this incredibly beautiful church, almost like a mini cathedral on the campus. And I like just going there and sitting in there during my lunch break. It's kind of meditating. And you know, something I remember someone telling me back when I was getting ready to leave, when I really wanted to leave in the late 90s. I think his name is Bill Phelps. His wife's name is Connie Phelps. Wonderful people.
Oh,
they left.
yes.
So they came into this restaurant where I was working, like, oh, hey, you know, I waited at the table. And so, you know, it was kind of late in the evening, and I was talking with him. And I remember what he said just stuck with me so much. And it's just something to live by. He said, you know, he's like, as I sort of get well into middle age here, what I'm understanding about my journey in life is moving away from fear and towards love. And it just came back to me, you know, sitting in that church today, like it, you know, what if it really is that simple, just moving away from fear towards love. And that's just, I think, so much of the work you do and what we try to do. And I think that's, you know, the reason so many people leave the church, because they're tired of just this system that relies pretty much entirely on fear to keep people in
And in line. There's not, I mean, I literally, Ted, I cannot tell you a day in my life, 7 days a week, 365 days a year that I've been doing this now, that I don't literally say, where is the love? That comes to me over and over. I mean, I'm in awe that it's just not there. Like I keep thinking, what on earth? How am I missing this? Because on the same hand, this is what I say often. on the same hand, these are the same people that saved my life growing up. I would never, ever have survived my childhood with my mother if I had not been taken for days and weeks on end by other elders and families. And so it's very hard for me to reconcile that it's the love that they gave me that saved me, and at the same time they're stuck in a system that there is no love. And that part is, maybe, I don't know, I still don't have that reconciled, but
Yeah, maybe you don't have to.
maybe I don't
Maybe
have to, but
just love it.
I
Go
feel a
ahead.
lot of love in my heart. I feel like that's the gift that was put in me as when I was born. The spirit of love flows freely from me. That's something I've always forgiven easily. I've always been somebody that I call myself a whack-a-mole because I just keep coming back. And
I love it.
I keep loving, like you can't keep me down is kind of how I go through
Yeah,
life.
that's very much you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to kind of that I've been thinking a lot about because like I was saying, I get appreciation from people, but I also get kind of the hate mail, the comments. And usually I try not to engage with it too much. Just, I mean, if like the people that email me, I usually just ignore it. But I did get into it with someone on YouTube. Uh, just not because I was ever going to get them to see my point of view, but more of just like it was just a fascinating exercise just to see all the different ways they would do anything but acknowledge I kept asking this question, like answer these two questions, like what in my video is incorrect and support that with evidence. Just a very, very simple thing. And yeah, and so it was anything but acknowledge it. And then something happened, and I don't like to get into politics much at all. I'm fairly neutral politically. Um, but there's this situation with this Senate race in Maine where the Democratic nominee, Graham Plattner, if you're familiar with that, has had some, quite a sexual assault allegation came out the other day. And before that, some physically abusive stuff, all sorts of statements he's made. But just seeing like on social media and other places where these supporters of his, it sounds the same as the 2x2s. It's like, attacking the motives, this is a conspiracy basically to destroy our movement. It's just kind of all the same phrasing, just some of the words are different. And it's just a difficult thing when you come up against that because you will not change people's mind. You will not even get them to look at it. I have a good friend who, in this community, that video I made, he sent it to a relative of his. He's like, please watch this. And the response was like, I'm not going to look at other people's garbage. Don't even. And so when there's just that, not even willing to consider or look at the evidence, I think that's where kind of the biggest problem is, because I think there's so many, and I think that political situation really kind of helped me understand that this is, I think it's just tribalism. That, I mean, George Carlin has this great piece: when your ideology becomes your identity, then any argument against your opinions becomes an attack on you.
Yes.
And your basic sense of self. And so it's like, we're not having a political disagreement, or we're not talking about abuse that occurred in your church. You are attacking me in the most personal,
Yes.
awful way possible, and I have to essentially fight for my life,
Right.
rhetorically, emotionally. And I think that's really, I think I keep saying this, but what we're up against is there just so many people in the church who don't know the scope of the abuse. They don't want to know the scope of the abuse. And they have no willingness to even consider it or talk about it. And that's, I think, the hardest part, when people become so entrenched in defending their tribe or what they think that means. So, and I don't know how to get past that, because you get to a point where people are not persuaded by evidence when they won't even look at it.
And that has been a problem, that they are not persuaded by evidence, because we have presented so much evidence. Like, we appealed to the emotion, that didn't work. Then we went forward with the evidence, that didn't work. Now ugh, you're right. It leaves me speechless, because I don't know how to get to them in a way that they can listen. The only thing that I think that they will pay attention to is love, is knowing that we're going to love them where they are, and to get out of that defense mode. Somebody said something earlier, and I just saw it pass by, but it was the whole us versus them. I have been trying very hard to give us some dialogue around asking questions differently. So instead of attacking them when we're giving them information, what is it about that makes you feel whole, or makes you feel safe, or asking different questions and asking questions better. I posted a couple examples on just listing some questions that people can ask their family differently, rather than, you are stuck in a cult, and it's everybody's on defensive.
They
So
shut down. I think 100% that's the nail on the head, because that's. I remember I was watching something recently. You persuade someone by giving them permission to be wrong. And
yes.
I had this conversation with somebody, very close to me. This is the thing I hate about it too, is you can't just say who it is, because there's just this whole I'm doing it out of respect, but it's just it's just so icky, and it still follows us, just the fear. But anyway, because and I do feel this way, but what I was saying, and I think it's something, maybe a point of conversation to have to people, say that, there was a time where this church was much better than what it is now. Like, I think of my grandparents and my great grandparents, those generations, I can see the simplicity that appealed to them. Getting away from all the dogma and the pomp and circumstance of the churches, and focus on, doctrine and money. And here's these two people who just want to talk about what Jesus's message was. And look, they take after him in a lot of ways. They're not worried about, looking at it in the best possible light, and I think, obviously there's a long history of abuse. I don't want to whitewash that in any way, but, I think, they're, and I hear this from people who are older generation, how much it's changed. But, I think there was a time where there was still something good about it. There was a goodness to it. There was some real integrity, a desire for people to find kind of a meaningful spiritual path. And I think it satisfied that for a lot of people. I think that's why it took off as much as it did. And then, and so I think, that can be helpful, getting people to understand that, this isn't, it's something that when you were young, or your parents, it's so much different now. And,
Yeah.
Looking at how much things have changed, because like I was saying, where there was that simplicity, over time, it's just become another church with the rules, with the doctrine, with the dogma, with the money. But it's kind of a worst case scenario, because the doctrine isn't published. It's not really agreed upon. It's just whatever worker X decides they want it to be.
Right.
And as a side note, I got to say, one of the insights I've had listening to conventions lately is, the younger workers and the sister workers tend to have these sort of very simple moralistic lessons. Jonah disobeyed God, so we need to obey God. There's no talk about the complexity between, is this what a just God does? What's the difference between mercy and justice or cultural, none of that stuff, because it's not there. But then, that seems to be kind of by and large what the first half of those meetings are. And then and if you listen for it, I don't know, I think you'll hear it, but so much of the male workers having the long part of the meeting at convention is just like this thinking out loud, trying to articulate what they believe the doctrine of their church to be, and usually doing it fairly badly in this, roundabout way that it's like, I don't know really what you're talking about, what the train of thought is supposed to be. But, when that is your doctrine, I mean, I got way off track there. But I think if you go back to, I think you're 100% right. Most people just entrenched beliefs aren't persuaded by evidence. It's that starting a conversation, and giving them permission to be wrong. We've all been there. We all make mistakes. We all have, there's a real liberty in saying, there's freedom in surrender and saying I got this wrong. Now what can I?
And I think that living well and loving them where they're at and showing them what the joy can look like on the outside, it's just, it takes away the defense. It's, I just gonna love you, whatever, it's fine. And then there's nothing for them to get upset about. And that's where you've got some healing going on, and where you've got some personal growth, is when you get out of the combative us versus them mentality. And I think that a lot of that these days is being as much driven from the inside as the outside. But, when they're preaching from the platforms, you're listening to conventions, that they're saying, don't have anything to do with these people. They're saying it very clearly and very loudly. Yeah. So that part is a bummer. I'm going to go down some of these. Oh, it's already 6:30. How on earth?
Well, we started late.
We did start. We'll go over. Yes, we did.
I think we started till 6.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, I want to just reply a couple of things. Carolyn Welburn, Daryl Johnson saying, Carolyn Welburn James, unfortunately, the exclusivity is essentially at that level. Yes, well, post a link on that so that people can just easily look that up. Somebody else, Shannon saying, I love my little Coffee X's meetup group.
Nice. That's what it's all about.
Yes, and I'm the more people
the
can
keyword
do that.
Little, keep that performative humility.
Yeah. I've connected with some ex-Pentecostal, and their struggles are incredibly similar. They are.
Oh, yeah, great idea. Yes. Great idea.
Mark and I
have so many commonalities.
There are. Mark and I had this Mark Simmons and I had this conversation today. We try to talk every Wednesday. We just have a great dialogue around stuff. But anyway, it's that we think we're so special. We literally believed for all these decades that we were the only ones going to heaven. And then when you realize that you're not, and that you're not and then it's, so I sent him the Shinedown song. Have you heard that song? Special by Shinedown. You can listen to it. I think so. It's all about that you're not special, that we're all the same. And at the end of the day, stop trying to get your 15 minutes of fame. Because you're not special. And it really is about the fact that we are fundamentally, at the end of the day, the same. We're not.
Yeah. And it's the greatest possible conclusion to come to. And and getting, that was one of the things I think, they love to talk about the miracle of convention. There's no way the world could do this, or this, how unique their system, their way is, but then you zoom out and it's like it's all the same tactics, strategies,
Yes.
behaviors, patterns, all of that stuff in all of these high control groups. And it's just like you're really just a cliche. You're just following this pattern that whatever is hardwired somewhere in our subconscious, one of the possibilities of what we can become, or what we can do, how we can operate. I mean, because I keep it just we're tribal. We're a tribal species, for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, even our ancestors, Homo erectus, the entire survival depends on tribes, whatever that is, 60, 70 people. And, if you are doing something that's counter to the needs, the will of the group, that is a real threat. And I think we just cannot underestimate how strong that still is in us, the need to belong, conform, and harness that in a healthy way, like one person was saying about the coffee group or the thing. But it's just something that I think we just really need to be aware of, that we can confuse that with reality. They're just, well, I won't go into it. But
well, back to the exclusivity, though, I think some of us get that mixed up in our salvation. The fellowship and the belonging that we crave so deeply is tied directly to our salvation, but it's not. That's the part that people are starting to rationally understand. It's not the same. Even though I say all the time, hey, you and I are having fellowship right here, two of us gathered together, but it's not, I don't feel like my salvation has anything to do with your salvation in the way that you and I can believe differently, or maybe we believe the same. That's, I think, coming out of what we came out of, there was some kind of connection between our fellowship together and our salvation.
Absolutely.
And separating that out now of just getting together, as long as it's not a gossip group, and we're really getting together to lift one another up, support one another, love one another, be there for one another, and be authentic and honest in our relationships, and not have this duplicitous life that we used to have. There's great power in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the positive, constructive approach to it, because it's so easy to get caught up in just how awful so many of these people are, like these overseers, Dale Schultz, Jerome Frandl, Lee. I mean, the list just goes on and on. But yeah, similar to you, I just feel the need to rise above that. It doesn't mean we can't call them out. It doesn't mean we can't kind of skewer them with satire to shine a light on it. At least that's my perspective. I mean, I think sometimes love is tough love, but especially on an individual level, treating people with kindness and love, and that's such. I'm on board with you.
Well, I just really feel like one of the other issues for people that keeps them from being able to move forward in this whole what now conversation is that they are so caught up in, and I think sometimes we're all guilty of feeding that, of these are bad people doing bad things. Yes, it is. Okay. So separating out what they can influence or control, that's where people start losing their minds sometimes, because I don't know that we're making a difference or not making a difference. We're certainly trying. But the person who's at home reading their Bible, going to work every day, doing what they can, they lose their mind in the fact that they don't feel like they're doing enough and they should be doing more, because Dale Schultz is who he really is. I will let you put whatever adjectives on that you want. But letting Dale Schultz steal your joy, somehow we need to find a way to say we are literally doing everything possible. If you feel called to do more to call accountability toward Dale Schultz, here are some steps you could take. Otherwise, Stop worrying about Dale Schultz and start focusing on what now for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, it's,
I think it's
yeah,
too easy
I
to
think
say,
yeah, it's not to minimize people's pain, but I think
right.
where I would agree with you is find a path where you can affect the change. And that might just be working on, for me, it's like working on myself. Okay, I can't change them, but I can heal, I can unlearn, I can deconstruct. And so, yeah, I think that's something we miss so often. I know I do. It's like, what do I mean? I was just before this, I'm a president of a teachers union, so I was in a union meeting. Um, but that's just one of the things we were talking about. We've talked about before is, it's so easy to just sit around and complain about what we don't like, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the let them theory, right? That
Yeah.
that book, like, let go of what you can't control,
Yes.
as hard as it is, and work on what you can. And I think that's really the secret to life, and it's much
Yeah.
easier said than done. But
I'm with you. Okay, so here's my last question for you. When history looks back at this moment, not Dale Schultz, not Dean Brewer, not any one person, but this entire falling away, what do you hope that it says about the people who finally chose to speak or leave or step up? What do you hope? Because I always want to be on the right side of history. I say that jokingly in a lot of areas of my life,
Mhm.
but I love history, and I think that when we look back at history, it tells us it's a pretty good indicator of the future in a lot of situations. That's my personal belief system. So that's my question. What do you hope that people looking back on us 50 years from now, what lesson they will be getting from our lives? Ted Harris, Crystal Stiles, man.
Well, I think just the importance of speaking up and speaking out, and it's just, I'm sort of, one of the things that's most shocking for me is, um, how difficult it would be for most people to do what we do, to speak out publicly. And that says much less about the individuals who don't want to do it, and much more about the system that still has the tentacles wrapped in the friends and family and and their greater community. And so I think just this, I don't know, the importance of those of us who have done it, you, myself, others. It's just something that needs to be done. I don't, not trying to toot my horn, but I do get tons of feedback. I love it from people who are just like, thank you, thank you, thank you for speaking up. This needs to be said. Like I mean, it's like the thing that means the most to me is the people, there's a handful of people who said, your stuff helped me leave. And, that's how I know, like, I've made a difference. If I can help, people get out of that system, if I was the last little thing that kind of pushed them out. And so I think it's just the importance of speaking up, telling the truth, and demanding accountability.
Even though it feels like we're knocking our head against the wall sometimes and it hurts, it is still worth doing. I feel, I just think, well, we got to do it a different way. We got to find a different question. We got to approach it some other way. And in the meantime,
Yeah.
build community over here.
Yeah. I mean, I got a message from somebody, and I think, like, what makes it all worth for me is, like, when survivors talk about how much it means for those of us who speak up and speak out. And someone sent me a message after the first Dale Schultz video. It's like, it was a survivor of abuse, and they were saying, you know, this means so much to me. I forget what they were saying, but something along the lines that even though people may not watch it. There will be a lot of people aware of it, and they're going to be uncomfortable about it. And, you know, this is someone who's done so much harm, has been called out. And, you know, there's this video out there now, 2 videos out there now. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of, you know, that's what it's about too. You know, people who have, and I said that in the last video, you know, that's why I do it, because for too long, too often, the voices are silenced, either overtly or covertly, and they just had to suffer in silence. And so just to be able to speak up about this, it's a real honor, you know, to do that.
I agree that it is. I love the fact that you do it with such humor, but you also do it with such integrity, Ted. And I love that about you. So thank you for that. With that, last word goes to you, and we're going to shut this down for tonight. But you know, I'll have you back on here soon. Thank you for being you. Thank you for just being a great example of what being a good human looks like, because modeling that, standing in that, even when it's not an easy thing to do, at all times. I can honestly say that in every situation, in my observation, I have watched you take the hard road and say what needed to be said. And for that, I give you huge kudos. So last word goes to you.
Well, yes, well, it's concerning. I hear a lot of people talking about self-will and pride. I'm kidding. The worker voice. But no, just thank you, Crystal. It's an honor to be a part of this, and let's keep doing what we're doing.
Let's keep doing what we're doing. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody out there. And yeah, let's just keep this conversation going, because I do feel like that together we'll all figure something out.
All right. Thanks.
I think we're well on our way. I think we're doing a good job anyways. So.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you later. Yep.